move that Botvinnik played to improve his position. Pause the video and have a go. So the move is g4. Such a strange move to open up the king side this way, but the idea is to go g5 next move, kick the knight away, and then we'll win this pawn. Otherwise, we'll support with moves such as king g2, h4 and g5 to expand on the king side. We'll play queen f3, put more pressure on this pawn, and then develop the queen side as well. So a clever move that put Smyslov under pressure and led to Botvinnik's eventual win in this game. So here we have a classic strategic game between Botvinnik as white and Smyslov as black. It opens d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, bishop b4, the Nimzo Indian defence, and e3, an orthodox move. White's idea is to play knight to e2, supporting the knight, and then play a3 to force black to make a decision with this bishop. Meanwhile, black will play moves such as b6 and c5, possibly d5 himself as well, develop the queen side and try and break down white's centre. So black goes b6, now Botvinnik goes knight e2, and now bishop a6. This is a clever way to play the position. Black plays bishop a6 to force some kind of positional concession before moving the bishop back to b7 on the long diagonal. So Botvinnik responds with a3. The idea is if the bishop takes, we can recapture the knight and the bishop supports the pawn. If the bishop falls back, we can then start to expand with moves such as knight f4 and b4. So bishop e7, a different way to play the position is bishop takes, knight takes, and d5. And now if white takes, black will prevent white from castling, so it's quite a clever way to play. White basically goes b3 and then shores up the queen side and develops, and the game goes on. But anyway, Botvinnik went bishop e7, keeping the bishop pair, but this bishop here is a bit passive and kind of gets in the way of the development of the queen. White goes knight f4, allowing the bishop to support this pawn. And this knight has a big future because it prevents black playing d5 or discourages it. White can also think of going d5 himself. If that doesn't work, the knight can always, once this bishop's moved, the knight can drop back to d3 and maybe go to e5. So black goes d5, again setting up the pin on this pawn against the bishop. Botvinnik actually obliges it with c takes d5. In the notes of this game, Botvinnik said he played b3 in a different game, but he preferred the more active play where you open up the centre and then play for an attack. If you go b3, the bishop will just drop back to b7, and then you'll probably end up taking anyway, but then this structure is slightly weak. So instead, Botvinnik went c takes d5, and now bishop takes f1, king takes f1. Botvinnik allows the prevention of his castling, but he's going to castle the king by hand anyway, and obviously black's not going for an attack here. Another thing he could have done, interesting move, is d takes e6. You actually sacrifice a piece here, bishop a6, e takes f7, king takes f7. So you have given up a minor piece for 2 pawns, with the idea that the queen can come into the attack, supported by the knight. The knight's going to end up on e6, and you're going to gain time on the king, and the king's going to end up stuck in the centre. So queen b3, king e8, knight e6, queen d7, knight takes g7, get another pawn for the piece, and king d8. The trouble with this is after knight e6, king c8, white's attack has basically come to nothing. Black's king is safe, he's going to play knight c6, bring the king to safety, and then slowly take over the initiative. So instead, Botvinnik went for the sensible move with king takes f1. We're threatening to win this pawn, we're also threatening knight e6 with the fork of the queen and pawn. If black goes g5, then, for example, knight e6, queen d7, knight g7, king f8, and queen h6, and we've got a winning attack. So instead, black is forced to go e takes d5. And now here, a stunning move, which I would never think of in a million years, but very clever strategic move with lots of different ideas behind it. g4. The idea here is to, number one, launch kingside attack. You're going to destabilise this knight by playing g5. Once the knight's moved, this pawn will be hanging. We've also making space for the king to come to g2, which is casting by hand. The rook can then develop. We've also got an idea of rolling both pawns down the king side, so it discourages black from castling kingside. Black does not want to play queen d7 castle queenside because his main counterplay revolves around playing the c5 move, as it does in so many queen's pawn openings. And if you play c5 after castling queenside, your king is going to be very unsafe. So g4, a difficult move to respond to. Smyslov goes c6 here. Now, as Botvinnik said, this is a natural move, but it falls into a difficult position. He kind of has to go g5 himself. Again, another unorthodox move, just to stop this attack in its tracks. white can then go knight h5 and then get slightly better position after this because he's going to bring his queen out, and eventually he's going to play e4 and win up this pawn. But instead Smyslov goes c6. Now this gives Botvinnik the time to play g5, knight fd7, and now h4, a typical Sicilian style pawn storm. Our idea is to either play positionally with sensible moves like king g2, queen g4, or we could even play more aggressively with queen g4, and then once this pawn's safe, we can start to roll all the pawns down the board. Now, the best move is actually to castle here, even though it's +1. Now, this does look dangerous. You're definitely castling into the storm, but after, for example, e4, d takes, knight takes, you've got time to play moves such as knight c5, exploiting this pin, because if we take, we lose the queen, so we'd end up having to capture on c5 with the knight, pawn takes, and then bishop e3. And now, this is the thing, when your opponent is attacking your king, you should always counter-attack in the centre, because it means your opponent won't have time to bring his pieces into the attack if the centre's open. So this would have been a better way to play, but anyway, Smyslov played bishop d6, a natural move, gets the bishop on a more active square, and keeps the option of castling open for later. Botvinnik goes e4. Now this is quite clever because the bishop supports the knight. D takes e4, knight takes, bring the knight into the centre, and now bishop takes f4. I mean, he could have played bishop e7, but then we'd still just be going for plans such as queen e2, maybe bring the knight to f5 via g3, and then we can slowly improve our position because black doesn't really have any active plans. I mean, c5 doesn't really do anything because we just go d5. We can even think of going b4, clamp down on this, and then fianchetto the bishop. So bishop takes f4, castles, and now h5. This is a scary position to face. Botvinnik is attacking in both the centre and the king side. We've got the threat of h6, after which g6 leaves the king very open because we'll be bringing our queen to f3, our knight to f6, and so on. So black goes rook e8, knight d6, rook e6, and honestly at this point black's position is actually so bad he could sacrifice the exchange with knight to f8, then after knight takes, queen takes, he's got chances to try and hold the game with just normal developing moves, but it's not very nice. Anyway, rook e6, d5, rook takes d6, bishop takes, so he gives up the exchange anyway. If he hadn't given up the exchange, if he'd gone c takes d5, we get queen takes d6, d5, sorry, attack the rook, so knight a6, and now we have a winning combination, knight takes f7, king takes, and now g6 check. After h takes, king e7, we've got bishop to d6 check. Then if the rook takes, this is mate. If the king moves back to, or out to f6, we can start to bring the pawn into the attack with threatening mate here, and this is just losing for black. So seeing, it's surprising that this actually works because white doesn't seem to have much of an attack. There's only one piece in black's half of the board, but the queen is coming into the attack, and with it the pawns as well, so it will spring into action. So rook takes d6, bishop takes d6, and now queen takes g5. So black has sacrificed the exchange for a pawn. If white was to just take, which is what a lot of people would do, black would recapture, and then he'd have a chance to bring his rook into the attack, and white's king's a bit weak, and black might take over the initiative here, but white can play queen f3. Now the idea is after c takes d5, we can play rook g1, queen h4, and then start to bring the rooks onto the open file, onto the g file, and we take over the initiative. If queen takes d5, which is what happened, we can actually exchange the queens, but then we've got rook c1, and black's so tied up he can't even develop his queen side before white crashes through. So knight a6, b4, a great prophylactic move, covering the two main squares the knight can go to. Black's rook can't really develop because of, well, if the rook moves off the back, obviously there's a threat of back rank mate, so black's going to have to spend a move playing h6 anyway. But if black does get the rook off the back rank, bring the rook to black's back rank, and then playing rook a8, for example, will start hoovering up all these pawns. So h6, rook h3, quite a clever way to get the rook over to the c file, double up. He might even play rook e3 into e7 as well. Now, materially, black's not too bad. He's got 2 pawns and a knight for the rook, but positionally, his pieces have no coordination. They're stuck on passive squares, and Botvinnik has completely outplayed Smyslov here. King h7, rook d3, knight f6, and b5. Attack this knight, and after knight c5, we win a pawn with rook b8, and now we just convert the exchange being up. We've got a simple plan of advancing these 2 connected pawns. We're going to slowly gang up on this a pawn, win it, and then promote a pawn. So a4, rook b7, rook dc3. Botvinnik just tries to exchange rooks to speed things up. He's going to play rook c7. So for example, if knight e4, we can just go rook c7 now. And after the rook moves, we can just move the rook and then pick up this pawn. So great positional masterpiece from Botvinnik. The move I liked the most was this g4 move. Such a clever prophylactic move that opens up so many different ways to play for white. And then, yeah, Botvinnik just made one inaccuracy after another. He was forced to make kind of unconventional moves, and he didn't see them because he was playing in a very normal way, and that just led him into a losing position. So, another great game by Botvinnik. I hope you learned something, and yeah, see you in the next one.